Wow! This episode is going to be quite something. I'm really, really excited. North London Sustainability Network.
Yep, that's us.
If you carry on watching to the end, you'll understand what the sustainability is all about, what the North London thing is all about, why trees are so important to our environment. And I really do want you to stay to the end, and this will be of interest and entertaining and engaging. So Charles, do you want to introduce yourself, sir?
Welcome. Thank you for joining us. This is Improve Your Carbon Footprint, where we talk about climate change, what's happening, the threat, and what we can all do about it. Today is Black Friday. It's a special day, and what we're talking about today, we're talking about Black Friday and the impact on our CO2 footprint. So on the panel, we have myself, Charles Appleby. I'm the founder of No CO2, that's n0co2.org. We plant trees, plant enough trees, and you go carbon neutral. Then we have Sonia Meager. Sonia is the founder of North London Sustainability Network and her marketing director, Stephanie Buck. And of course, we have Gary, who's chairing the discussion today. So, Gary, over to you.
Charles, so topical, this. And this is something that has been a labour of love for you both.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the Sustainability Network?
So in the summer of 2018, I was in my garden thinking about all things environmental, as you do. And I don't know, I started Googling, to be honest, and I thought, I was thinking about sustainable issues, events, blah, blah, blah. And I found quite a few, but they were very focused on individual industries. So it might be food, it might be transport, it might be fashion, it might, whatever, finance. And I thought, blimey, I've been interested in the environment since I was a child. And my thing, obviously, being a chef, is food. However, I'm interested in, everything to do with sustainability and the environment and our world. And I thought I can't be the only one. So I just thought, why not start up a network? And I met a lovely Steph, we might have met already, I can't remember. I started talking to her about it. And Steph got excited. And anyway, so we started running events.
It's so current. So current. I remember when you started, and it was still a bit curious. People were like, what's all this about? And then to have all the politicians talking about this.
Yeah.
To have I don't think there was a climate emergency at the time, and it's on everyone's mind. So you were an innovator.
Well, I wouldn't say that.
You both are. You're both amazing, and you're so inspiring because you were on this before it was cool. Before when and now it really matters.
I mean, certainly to that point you've just said, Gary. I mean, Sonia's been running her catering business for over 10 plus years, and Eco Cuisine is all about sustainable food and local sourcing and all of these wonderful things that makes food sustainable. So certainly Sonia's been doing this as a business far longer than most people who have cropped up in the last few years. And with regards to the North London Sustainability Network, I mean, it's just been absolutely fantastic to see it grow.
Yes.
And as you said earlier on when we first started, to have for our network, which is targeted locally, to see our numbers increase, and every event we do, we get more and more people coming along. We've got more and more people joining us on our social media. So the general interest from people who may not know very much.
Do you know these guys? They do theme. They've done.
We've done food, packaging. We've done sustainable and ethical fashion. We've done green buildings and architecture.
That was interesting.
And then our last one was
energy
urban
and transport
and energy, which is really brilliant.
And the next one, what's the next one?
Well, I'd like it to be finance. Because
okay.
like a lot of us, we're looking to put our money into green,
Fantastic.
Green projects as opposed to gas guzzling whatevers.
Well, let me know when it is. I'd like to come along.
Do they not? They really have been saying that for years. They're an ethical bank. Do you know much about that, Charles? What banking background?
I don't know much about it, no. I wouldn't want to step ahead of Sonia's event. I think Sonia's event is the one to go to find out all about it, to be honest. And so let me know when it is, and I better be there, yeah?
We'd love to have you there.
Thank you.
Definitely so. And also the network, unlike a lot of other networks in terms of sustainability, it's not just focused on business. We're bringing together individuals, businesses, small, medium and large. And we're also bringing together the third sector as well. and it's really
I
worked,
think
doesn't
you're
it? People
doing
love.
an amazing job.
Thank you. We're
Because
quite, you know.
You're reaching parts that possibly didn't care.
Yeah.
So that's what I really love.
Well, not necessarily didn't care, just didn't know, and felt maybe a little wary to kind of step into it. And now we're getting more and more people coming in who may have not known very much about it, but had a bit of a curiosity, and now they feel much more comfortable to get involved in the conversation.
Sustainability curious.
Yes, absolutely. They've got the green radar
It's
on
a
now.
Green
which is what they
Friday.
say.
What's this all about?
Green Friday is not exactly the antithesis of Black Friday, but I would say it's more sort of about being mindful about our purchasing as opposed to being mindless, if you like. And I think quite a good analogy is, you know, like you've heard of slow fashion, slow food.
Yes.
So I would call Green Friday a bit of like slow buying, if you like. So instead of just getting all excited about spend, it's more about just take a breath. Do I
Be
really
mindful.
need it?
I think so.
Do I really have the money to? Do you know that sort of, instead of just getting on the thing of we've got to
Just
have
like
stuff.
when
you
you're
know.
going shopping, you think for a second, have I got a bag? And I take it. And then you don't need to buy a plastic bag. Being mindful of that.
Yeah.
Like today, I cycled to the train station. I could have driven. I probably would have been here 5 minutes sooner. But I cycled. I really think if everyone just thinks a tiny little bit and then eats less beef, and I know, Charles, you've got your top 5 things that we should do. Should we just let the audience know? Because there's so many things you could do at home, and I'd love to hear what you do at home to make a difference, Charles.
Well, basically, it's pretty easy for people to do stuff which does make a big difference. So the big one is basically switching your electricity supply. So most people at the moment are with the big 6 or whatever. But if you switch to clean electricity, that's electricity from renewable sources, wind and solar and whatever, then basically you can save 1 ton of CO2 per household per year on average. And so obviously that happens.
And a ton of money.
That happens every year.
We learned last week that you
Yeah.
could save on average £300 a year. I will put the link back down here because it's the same energy and you're saving £300 a year by using solar or wind. It's amazing.
Hydro, yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, so
Amazing.
I recall, Gary, it was more like £174.
Okay.
But anyway,
Depends on
whatever.
the size of your house.
It depends. It
Would
depends.
you like to exaggerate?
But certainly the opportunity of saving money. Then think about your air travel. Think about your air travel because this creates a lot of CO2 emissions. Generally do what you can. I mean, everyone's lifestyle is different. Everyone's life is different. So rather than us saying you have to do all this stuff, think about it and do what's suitable for your own lifestyle. Turn down the heating a bit. I mean, I like to turn down the heating. Then my wife screeches, so I turn it up again for a bit and then turn it down again when she's doesn't notice. But anyway, it's all what you can do in your lifestyle. And when you change your car, don't rush to get an electric car now. But when you do change your car, then do think about an electric car or a hybrid car, and hopefully by the time we get to that point, then the government will have worked out a way of making it very cost effective. But let's bring in Sonia at this point, because Sonia has had an electric van for 3 years. That's amazing. So,
Yeah, I love
Sonia,
it.
tell us all about it.
Well, I remember when I did a test drive in it, and I came back from my little spin, and the sales guy was there, and well, it's a leased actually, but you know, he's still a salesman, and he sort of said, he sat there with me, and I remember going, so do we switch it off or something? Because I couldn't hear anything. Do we switch? He was having a bit of a laugh, and it's actually had its MOT yesterday for the 30th of November, and of course we had a bit of a laugh at the garage where they said, you know, where's the exhaust pipe then, so we can check the emissions, like you know, like blokes in garages laugh. But on a serious note, I mean, they reckon, I've worked it out and I think it's true, if you spend £100 on fuel, you'll spend £10 on electricity for the same amount
Wow, that's
miles.
amazing.
So, and you can I use Ecotricity pumps to do a fast charge, but luckily I rent a kitchen and I can just wire the slow charger through the window and run it on, you know, something you boil your kettle on, and you get 10 miles per hour of charging. So, you know.
Oh right, man.
Yeah.
So have you used public chargers? Have you used in on the street, all that sort of thing?
Yeah. At IKEA actually, Ecotricity
Right.
have things at IKEA.
Okay, so if you
Don't
go,
all rush there. 'Cause
I mean,
like to go there.
I don't know, but if you go to IKEA and you use their charging, then basically how do you get billed for that, Sonia?
Oh, I've got an app on my phone.
So you pay for the electricity you buy at IKEA.
Yeah.
You have to pay for it.
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant.
Yeah.
And have you been stranded when you're driving around?
No, but we have got down to 12 miles, which is a bit scary, and all things are flashing and telling, you know. But there is actually a phone number you can call if you're unfortunate enough or stupid enough to run out of miles, and they'll come and get you directly within an hour.
Well, my window cleaner swears by his electric.
Oh, I love it.
It's great. I've got a burning question. Since I've been doing these podcasts with Charles, it's had quite a profound impact on my life. Eating beef, cycling more, taking public transport. What has anything changed in your life since you've been doing this North London sustainability?
Sorry, not eating beef, you mean, Gary?
Not eating. Did I say eating beef?
Well,
Not eating beef.
I'll go first, I suppose, because I'm older.
Thank you, Charles.
And so for me, the basis that I set Eco Cuisine up was to run the business how we are at home. So we're vegetarian during the week and have been for a number of years. A, it is good for the environment. B, it's very good for my housekeeping money. Because obviously if you're not buying meat and fish in the week, that's a lot of money saved. And also I know I'm a chef, but actually it's not difficult to do that. You know, once you've got your staples and you get used to making a few things or make things and put them in the freezer like curries and stews and blah blah blah. Eating seasonally, eating British produce
Very important.
is another thing. It's cheaper, it's fresher, tastes better.
I remember it was Avocado Day the other day, and it was on the news saying how ridiculous this avocado was coming from such a long way.
Yeah.
What's your feeling on that?
No, I totally agree. Going off slightly on a tangent, but a very big vegan product at the moment, which is really featured in a lot of menus, is jackfruit. Because apparently, I've never tasted it, but apparently once it's shredded, it sort of is a bit of akin to like shredded meat sort of thing. A lot of people are using it in their vegan recipes, and then they call themselves sustainable because they're a plant-based diet, but then they don't think that jackfruit, to my knowledge, is not even grown in Europe, let alone the UK.
Tropical.
But I think
Absolutely.
people have got to understand that we're talking about vegetarian and vegan. The equation is very simple. So if you have a vegetarian day, for one person, it's worth about 1 kilogram of CO2 emissions saved. If you have a vegan day, it's worth about 2 kilograms. And as Gary said, if you eat sort of more industrial factory farmed beef, then basically you are creating quite a bit of damage to the environment, unfortunately. So as Sonia said, if we can focus more on the vegetarian or vegan, then it's actually good, very good for the planet.
Spell it out for you. If we didn't need as many cows, we wouldn't need to produce them in farms and so on. So it's a supply and demand thing. If we can just cut beef out for a tiny bit, just once, it would make such a big difference.
Absolutely. I mean, we've
Huge
talked about
difference.
getting some of our speakers who've, on different subjects, going into schools moving forward, etc. And, one thing I'm really keen on, you've got young children, Gary, I think it's really important for children to understand where the meat comes from, and that by buying cheap processed meats or any cheap meat means that the animals had a really horrific life. I'm not an anti-meat person, by the way, but I do go to a proper butcher and know where my meat comes from. Animals are important for biodiversity of the soil.
So have you changed anything since you've been doing this? Have you changed anything in your lifestyle? Or were you already?
No,
there?
I think when we did
Your
our
clothing.
fashion thing
Fashion
last
event was
November,
interesting.
it's really funny because
April.
April, beg your pardon, yeah. And I don't even know what day it is. And I turned up in this shirt, and this shirt I got out of my wardrobe, and I had that on my 40th birthday. So, and
Not
I've
that
had
long
it
ago.
before that, so I've had it. Thank you. I've had it well over 20 years, and I've still got this shirt. So I wore it on stage because I thought.
You were
By-
the embodiment of
Yeah,
slow
and
fashion without
I didn't
realising
even
it.
realise it
It looks
because I've
very
never
good.
been a clothes buying. I played a lot of sport when I was young, so I was doing that rather than going out with the girls buying.
Shopping.
I mean, you, if you don't mind me saying, you've probably changed more than me, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, certainly since I've been involved in the North London Sustainability Network, it's had a huge impact on me, actually, personally, and I've made a lot of changes in my own lifestyle. I can say, in all truth, I haven't bought a new item of clothing for over a year.
Wow.
I'm not fussed by going shopping and, you know, going to buy new things and stuff anymore. And some of my family and friends, particularly my mum, who tries to drag me out shopping, I'm just not interested. I'm really, and the reason for that is because I'm so much more conscious now of what goes into make garments and the negative impact on the environment that the clothing industry has. Our Sustainable and Ethical Fashion event that we did back in April was a huge eye-opener, and we were very lucky to have some
It's
incredible
the second biggest
speakers.
industry for global warming.
It's just astronomical. The impact not only to the environment but also the people as well. The human impact that it has on the people involved in what is essentially slavery in some places where they're just the working conditions are so poor. If people really knew and really understood and really thought about it, I think they would think twice about shopping in certain shops, which we will not name.
Why a t-shirt is £2?
It shouldn't be.
How does a
We shouldn't
t-shirt
be
become
buying that.
£2?
It can't, you know, it doesn't make sense, does it? You have to think, you know.
Anyway, if you're just joining us, this is Improve Your Carbon Footprint. We're talking about what people can do, and we've got people here saying, well, look, this is what we can do about shopping. No need to buy so much stuff necessarily. So Stephanie, you've looked into this maybe. So the £2 t-shirt, in your view, what is the what's the sort of really the proper price for something which doesn't involve you know, damaging the environment or slavery or whatever? What's the sort of sensible price, do you think, for a t-shirt?
So I'm not sure even about what that sensible price, you know, should be, but I definitely think that people should be thinking, you know, maybe applying the 5 R's principle, if you like. So before buying anything, whether it's a t-shirt or any kind of consumerism type product, is really stopping to think, well, do I really need it?
See, how did
Hold on,
the coffee?
We've got 5 R's. We've got 5
5
R's.
R's.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's you know, thinking, do you really need it?
Yeah.
In the first instance,
Yeah.
could you potentially you know, borrow one or
Yeah.
buy one second hand? So it's
Okay.
thinking about, you know, reuse, or do you have something similar that you could repurpose?
Right.
Or
Okay.
you know, it's not just about clothing, but if it's maybe a household item or a piece of furniture, could you maybe recycle or upcycle? So it's thinking about, you know, really thinking about purchasing something. Do I really need to buy that brand new? Could I get it secondhand? Could I borrow it?
Yeah.
Could I lease it? And one of the great things that I think the whole fast fashion or slow fashion movement has brought to light is that there are so many businesses out there who are hiring. You can hire jeans, you can hire handbags, you can hire dresses for certain, you know, for special occasions or for longer term use. You don't need to buy brand new.
Yeah.
I love that.
So you've got the 3 R's, and now we've got the 5 R's
Yes,
from
3 R's
Stephanie.
to the 5 R's.
Yeah, and amazing about renting stuff out. So just to mention people I know in this space, Fat Llama. Yeah, they do renting out stuff that you don't want to use. Okay,
I
so
wonder about fair trade. When you look at coffee and it says fair trade, wouldn't to start a movement with that, seeing that on clothes, and you know that everyone's fair. So we've got Christmas coming. Can you think of any sustainable Christmas presents? Because I don't know whether you know anything about what Charles does, but it sustains a family as well. Charles, will you tell us about? Because I think one of the best Christmas presents you can get is really buying some trees for someone. Will you tell us how that sustains a family?
well, I was going to say, Gary, that with Christmas coming up, then a really sustainable present to buy people is some trees. It's particularly good for people who've got a lot of stuff already, and maybe, you know, what you buy is not going to have a big impact on them if it's an item, and it's also good for people you don't know what to buy. So the point about trees is that if you buy trees, then you can remove your carbon footprint. So sadly, each of us in the UK is creating about 7 tons of CO2 per person per annum. If you plant 1,750 trees, sounds a crazy amount, but 1,750 trees, those trees will remove on average 7 tons of CO2 per annum for every year that the trees are growing. So it isn't expensive. We plant these trees in the Far East, in Madagascar, in Indonesia and Nepal. And as Gary says, in addition to removing your CO2, for every 100 trees that we plant, that creates 1 day's work for families who are in extreme poverty.
Amazing,
Love
isn't it?
that.
Yeah, I love
So-
that.
Absolutely
Love that
love that.
idea.
So
what
what
they
else
can
can we
do-
do if we
they-
don't want to
Yeah.
buy a tree? Well, hopefully we do want to buy trees. What else can we buy as sustainable presents? Recycle things.
I'm going to turn back to maybe not buying, and this is a thing about
me
the
too.
Green Friday as well. You don't necessarily have to buy something. You can make something. You know, get creative, use your imagination. Think about all of the stuff that we've got at home. You know, is there something that you can be creative and repurpose something that you already got into something else entirely different.
And an experience way outweighs a item, a transaction. So to go somewhere, to do something together, that's always a much better present, I think.
I think particularly nowadays as well, because we've lived, I don't know, let's say the last 50 years or so with so much stuff now, more than what we used to have from the century before, let's say, for example. We've all got so much stuff, and I think there is a big shift, and certainly in my age group and a lot of my friends we're not as interested in buying stuff now, because we've pretty much got the things that we want or that we need, and experiences now are so much more important. And I think a lot of people are happier to spend more money on really good experiences over getting stuff that they don't really need or want.
Charles, what's the impact a train to Paris to a plane to Paris? What kind of impact are we talking
Okay,
about?
well, the way I would look at it, the equation is this, is that trains and buses, or trains in particular, are electric. So at the moment in the UK and a lot of countries, we're not fully renewable with the electricity, but we're heading that way. So that the trains really are running already. There's a train timetable already. The trains are going to run irrespective. Whereas if you take your car, then you're adding CO2 emissions by using your car, a non-electric car. So the point is about using the train is that I would say, look, that's running anyway. Whereas if you travel by air, then what you're doing is that we work out how many hours of flight it is. So if it's to Paris, it's not very far, so it's say an hour of travel. So it's about 125 kilograms of CO2 per hour. But when it really kicks in, I mean, say you're going to Australia and it's a 20-hour flight, that's 40 hours. So really that flight, 40 hours there and back, you're creating 5 tons of CO2, and you've got to compare that with the 7 tons of CO2, which is the average UK emissions. But the way to look at it at the moment, I would say, is that, look, you've got to choose what you want to do. You need to go to these places for the reasons. Okay, try and travel less far, and when you do get there, basically think
Charles,
about
I see
staying
a
longer.
world that everything is offset with buying a tree. So you'll go into a restaurant and it will say, if you buy this starter, I'll plant a tree in Madagascar. EasyJet are doing an offset scheme. How is that just get us off the hook? Will it be commercialised beyond belief, and then we switch off to it?
We need in the world, without a doubt, we need 1 billion trees, 1 billion more trees. Okay, there's 3 billion trees in the world already. We need 1 billion more trees. There's loads of space to put them because a lot of land has been deforested, and at the moment, if people will buy trees or get trees for the reasons of compensation, for the reasons of these sort of reasons, then for me that's all well and good, because it's getting towards our target of more trees. There's been companies around for a long time. It's got a lot of companies who, you may well notice, they're willing to donate 10% of their profits to charity. Now, at the moment, the environment is such a big problem that if some of those companies and others, particularly other new companies coming into this, are willing to link their products to purchasing more trees, then that's great. And Gary, you're an expert in this. You're with your marketing.
Just today, I came back from a Michelin star restaurant. He said he needs more people to go in the afternoon. And I said, have you considered that every meal you sell, you plant a tree? And his mind was full of possibilities. Wow, really? I really can't see that. Back to your sustainability events. What do you think the future is going to be? What more events are you going to put on? Have you already organised 2020?
No.
What do you think is going to happen?
Like I said earlier, I'm quite keen on doing finance. I think it's quite topical at the moment. Anyway,
I knew that was going to happen.
is that your
I
phone?
left my phone on
You're
silent.
very
This is the thing
naughty.
about live.
Very naughty.
Like the record when this is a podcast, we'll edit that sound out. But there we go. Live is fine. That's what makes life fun.
John.
But the good thing is when this is a podcast, that will be removed. So
Okay.
Will it? Oh, I want everyone to see it. She's naughty.
Okay, moving swiftly on, Gary.
That's
What we're
fine.
doing.
Right, so finance.
Oh yes.
Yes.
Yes, because green finance is, becoming quite popular. And actually, I was looking at some figures the other day. People have made a lot of money investing in green ventures, and not least because when you get in at the beginning, like a lot of things, if it goes well, then you're going to go in the right direction. And I think there's still room for.
So I come from a Greek background.
Yeah.
Greek origin, and there isn't even a word for vegetarian with us.
No.
So it's like giving up cigarettes, giving up meat.
Yeah.
It's a tough one.
I know.
So how do you even start to think about, right, 7 days a week, I'm going to try for 5 to be vegetarian.
Yeah.
Where do we start?
I don't know, but funny enough, I was saying the other day that there are certain cultures where meat is just it, and I think as a society in our country, especially with boys, young boys, mums kind of show off. Oh, he loves his meat. He loves it. No, do you know what I mean? Like,
I'm
and
the same. My son had the steak at 6, and I was so proud. And wow.
What a boy, like, look at that. Look at those sausages he's stuffing in his mouth at a barbecue, which is brilliant if they come from the butcher, and it's only, once a week or twice a week, but it's when you're doing it every day.
So tell me about
I think
protein.
a lot of it's habit.
Tell me about protein. Tell me about carbohydrates. And yes, we can eat pasta. We can with the carbs.
Well, then there's all
but
these stupid
where's
diets.
Where's the protein coming?
Well, there's all those stupid diets as well, where
Beans?
people only eat protein and they don't eat any carbohydrates, like no bread, no potatoes, no rice, no, it just sounds like.
So if you are gonna give up meat, what's a perfect plate to have? So you've got enough protein, enough carbohydrate, of course salads. What else do you want there?
Well, they say, I think I've read ages ago something about, I'm making this up now, so forgive me if I'm completely wrong, but there's a thing called Think 5, I think it's an Australian thing, where you have, a small piece of protein, a bigger piece of carbohydrate, even more vegetables on your plate, like half the plate full of veg, tiny bit of fat, which might be a bit of butter on your jacket potato, let's just say, and then a tiny bit of something that I can't think of in all the food groups to be healthy. And then you've just got to do your own investigations as to protein to replace your meat. So as an example, I make lots of curries at home, so I chuck in chickpeas, any beans. My other half isn't keen on beans, but has been educated over time to do it. Tofu, everyone thinks tofu is really boring. It's not, if you just give it a bit of care and attention. And by the way,
it's clean.
You don't have to give up meat. It's just not having it all the time.
It's
isn't
reducing it and buying. I think for me in my household and with my husband, I mean we've definitely taken the approach of we're reducing the amount of meat that we buy, and buying organic where we can. So buying quality, because the thought now, knowing what I know about the meat industry in buying cheaper meat and knowing the conditions that these animals are kept in, it just
puts you
not
off.
okay with me anymore, and
But
I'm not okay to participate in that.
But I mean, one thing you can do is that there's it used to be that you went into a restaurant that served meat and they had some sort of vague vegetarian dish that you could have, as a sort of fallback. But in London, in particular, there's fantastic restaurants. I mean, there's a whole Indian community restaurants which are specifically vegetarian and they don't serve meat. So what I would suggest is pop into some of these specifically vegetarian restaurants, see what they have on offer, see what you like, and if you like it, then basically think about doing that yourself at home. I mean, I love vegetarian curries. I mean, they are magic. I mean, you mentioned the curry, the chickpeas, spinach to go with it, and some other stuff, and have lots of veggies with it all, because the veggies really help your
And actually,
your health.
Greek and Turkish cultures have beautiful vegetarian dishes as well. Imam Bialdi, stuff like
McDonald's
that.
have been selling salads for 10 years. Who would have thought? And then now Greggs, their shares have gone up because they're doing a vegan sausage roll. So and it's a lot cheaper. You talk about the price. their pasties, their vegan stuff. It's about a third cheaper. Have you tried one?
I haven't tried the
Oh, they're
vegan
very
sausage
nice.
roll, but I have to say, as particularly as a marketeer, I thought that their marketing campaign when they launched it was very clever.
Very
Genius.
clever.
Very
Genius.
clever.
Yeah.
The
And,
MD actually is a vegetarian. He's a vegan.
Yeah.
So he thought he'd put it on the menu.
Really?
Well, don't knock it, because there's a load of people out there eating these vegan
Absolutely.
sausage rolls.
I'm one of them.
So next, onto one of Sonia's fantastic vegetarian curries. Magic.
Absolutely.
Funny enough, I'm making one on Sunday for a client for a film crew.
Great.
And actually, it's going to be vegan. And I did the base of the sauce today, and John in the kitchen tried it, and he went, "Oh, that's so good." I went, "Oh, thank you."
Do you know, I wish you'd brought some samples in. We could have all taken them home.
I know, yeah,
Tested them
sorry.
out
That would
next
have been
time,
nice,
okay?
Yeah.
But one of the great things, I mean, just to spend a little bit more time talking about veganism, is that, you know, there's so many more people now who are interested and are choosing to go vegan for whatever reason. But the result of that now is because the good result on that is that there is now so much more choice because more people are wanting it. So the kind of meat substitute type products that are out there or that are being developed are really of a very, very high standard.
And also, can I say, in the
you know, it's
corporate
nice.
world, like for our... Oh, sorry, I thought you finished.
That's
Sorry,
all right,
Deborah.
yeah, just go.
In the corporate world, because we do primarily corporate catering, I would say 50% now of everything that's ordered is they want vegetarian and vegan, gluten-free options.
Wow, that's
Great.
Yeah.
That's
every
amazing.
And
menu.
how has that
Yeah.
That really
changed
is
in the
amazing.
last decade?
Well, I think a couple of things. Sustainability obviously has become more of a buzzword, and so it started off with what do they call it? Corporate social responsibility,
Yeah.
CSR,
CSR.
and then slowly but surely. And I think I've had more inquiries in the last 6 months
That's
regarding
great.
changing their caterers because they're now realising, do you know what? We're organising meetings, events, da da da. If we're going to be sustainable, truly, we need to take that as far as food for our meetings and events as well.
Well, look, Channel
know.
4. We should talk about Channel 4. Did you watch the debate?
I did. Just before that, we should get my friend Richard to come and talk to your group about ESG, your finance group.
Okay.
Yeah. That's environmental, social and governance. So
Fabulous.
CSR is now ESG. Yeah. The Channel 4 debate. Guys, I hope you watched it. It was amazing. I thought it was absolutely amazing.
Sorry, I didn't.
So for me, Extinction Rebellion, you know, the guys and girls have been out there in London all this autumn making a lot of noise, making a good job of raising awareness, but the government didn't even meet them. They didn't even talk to them, say anything. Here we are, we have a debate organised by Channel 4, we have a debate with party leaders, and everyone's falling over themselves to basically come up with promises and commitments and say what they're going to do about climate change. So for me, it was fantastic. And there's a couple of really big ones here. Everyone wanted to move forward 2050 to an earlier date, which is fantastic. That's a really, really good aspiration. And the second thing that was really important is that there was a recognition that the environmental emergency is at the same level as important as the climate emergency. Because this is really important, because where we are now, there's good awareness of the climate emergency, but not enough action. But the understanding of the environmental emergency is way behind. So what we mean by this, we mean soil quality. Soil quality is really going down, which is going to impact our ability to grow food and increase our dependence on fertilizer and pesticides, which we don't want. And secondly, the catastrophic impact that there's been on insects and wildlife. And we absolutely need the insects and the bees in order to pollinate and grow the food, the rest of the food that we need.
And on that note, in America, you know, they've got these huge, big shacks, I would call them, for want of a better word, where they keep all these poor animals, and all the sluice, you know, all their stuff is being spilled out onto the surrounding areas and completely destroying, like you say, all the surrounding, you know, grassland for literally acres and acres around these places.
So we've been farming for thousands of years, and we have a mixed cycle where the animals and the crops, they interact and one helps the other. So now the fields are short of fertilizer, so we're putting the farmers having to put masses of chemicals into the fields, which is then leaching into the water supply, and then their children is drinking water which is contaminated by nitrates. And as Sonia's just said, at the other end, there's no way of processing and dealing with with all the waste products, and they are causing damage instead of
Now, if you're watching this and you feel, wow, this is serious, there are things. The whole point of this show is that you can do something about this. There was a hole in the ozone layer, as they spoke about. It's gone. It's practically gone. We can do things about this. I remember speaking to a nutritionist. She said to me that in the 70s, if you ate an apple, it gave you a certain amount of vitamins. You now have to eat 14 apples to get the same vitamins.
Crazy.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Is this the world we want our children to grow up in?
No.
It's down to us to really do something about it. And I'm hoping that you watch this and you do start to shift like me. I wasn't an early adopter like you both. But we really start, I'm very, very passionate about this now. And like Charles, anybody he meets, he talks about trees. I'm becoming you.
magic, Gary. That's what I want to hear.
How has this happened?
We've
And anybody you meet,
two
you
more
talk about
recruits today.
Anybody I meet, I talk about
sustainability.
using British produce,
Right.
and eating seasonally, and I can't help it. And some people's eyes go, "Oh God, here she goes again," but I don't mind.
Can you tell me? Can you inform me on something? It's a side issue. So, with Brexit happening, how is that going to affect the sustainability of our food to come from one place to another? Surely we would have to make more here.
Well, I think the truth is no one really knows 100%.
fair
That said, I would imagine, so places, like Riverford Organic.
Yes.
So they started off in this country last year. Actually, it was done very quietly. But sorry, I've gone off on a tangent. But the owner, he never wanted to sell out to a big corporate, and he had numerous offers in the last few years, but he didn't. And it's actually now a cooperative, so it's owned by all the workers. So when you see Riverford vans driving around, all those people are, part owners. Anyway, to go back to Europe. Basically, Riverford outgrew Britain in terms of space as they became more popular. So then they bought some land, definitely in France. I'm not so sure about Spain, to be honest. So we have to look at it as a whole. That the UK is a small country, and there are a lot of people that live here. And I would imagine that Europe would be just as keen, because another thing I hate, by the way, is live transportation of animals.
Yeah.
But the French, for whatever reason, I love French people, I love French food and wine especially, I promise. But for some reason they insist on animals being transported so they are live in their country when they go to slaughter. I still don't get that, but anyway, whatever. So what the point of that is, I imagine it's going to suit them to keep things flowing, and I would imagine there'll be some hiccups along the way. That would be natural.
Well, if you're at the supermarket and some apples are produced here and some apples are produced somewhere else, and why not just pick the ones that are produced here?
Because
that's what we're trying to say here.
Yeah, well, I think we've just got out of the habit, haven't we? Of I remember Satsumas and a russet apple. I don't know if you've ever had a russet apple. It was a sign that Christmas was coming, because they come out around the end of October, November time, and you're like, wow, even though Satsumas aren't here, but they only came then. And now in our times of you can get anything anytime.
All year round.
That's the thing, we don't, I think probably for a lot of people nowadays, particularly young people even, and younger people don't really know very much about seasonal fruit and vegetables, because they're used to seeing everything in the supermarket pretty much all year round. So generally speaking, you wouldn't really know.
And you'll love this. I don't have children myself, but I'm still obviously wanting to do something for other people's children. But one of my godchildren, Daisy, she went to school in Winchmore Hill. So when she lived there, I went in and did a few little, take in sort of food pieces to the kids. They're about 8 years old, I'd say. And then they had to guess where they came from. It was Winchmore Hill. Everything came from Cyprus. And they're only 8. And it's quite cute. They think everything comes from Cyprus. But I was like, darn it, why didn't any of them mention the UK? Because, we just don't realise, do we?
What we're touching on here is what I call the active consumer. So the active consumer is the one who goes to the supermarket and says, look, why are we getting these products here from all over the world when you, Mr. Supermarket, we could be putting things on the shelves which are grown locally? And unless people do this, go to whichever supermarket you go to and have a word with them about it, then it's not going to happen. So I know some supermarkets now do have more UK produce, but it seems to be so tempting, so easy for them to have stuff from all over the world, and maybe we're just going to have to not stop those altogether, but maybe they're going to have to be a bit more of a luxury, and the day-to-day, more of the day-to-day things be grown in the UK, and us be happy to buy them.
Yeah.
You picked up on a really good point, Charles, actually, about asking questions. And I think one of the things that has been fabulous over the last couple of years, and particularly this year, and particularly in the fashion world, is people asking the question, who made my clothes? I mean, that was a fantastic hashtag that has just taken off, particularly around Fashion Week and Fashion Revolution at the time when we had our event as well. So asking questions of retailers, of the shops and wholesalers, and wherever you buy your products or your produce from is, where was this made, or where has it been imported from? Who made this product, or who made this bread or whatever, this loaf of bread. It's asking the questions and actually showing a bit of curiosity as to what goes behind it, and if that particular shop owner or brand, particularly big brands, if they don't seem to have the answer, write about it on social media. Be public and ask those questions. Social media is incredibly powerful.
Yeah. Well, just first of all, guys, start off by asking the shop, because we don't want to diss people on social media without first giving people the opportunity to do something about it.
And I also say, jump in and say, like in the supermarkets, if you just take a few seconds when you're looking at your, let's just say pears at the moment, Kentish pears from Kent, it should be just coming in, and you might have to sift through some from France, South Africa, Holland, etc. in their horrible plastic bags, but you should be able to find someone from Kent at the minute. Mushrooms, you should be able to find mushrooms from Yorkshire, maybe even Ireland. Alright, it's Europe, but you know what I mean, a bit closer. What else? Potatoes, obviously, around at the moment, squashes, and instead of buying something sort of, exciting, should we say, like a cavallonera, the black cabbage that comes from, say, Italy, why not go for a lovely Savoy from Lincolnshire?
Oh.
Beautiful taste.
Oh, absolutely.
With your
I
roast
like
on
that.
a Sunday.
I love that. Now, this is do you know when you're in your passion? Time travels really quickly.
Is it?
I can't believe there's just not more than 10 minutes left of this thing.
Aw.
Hasn't it gone quick?
Yeah, it's been lovely.
So, but we might have a different government the next time we do this show. This is the last show this year, and the parties didn't all quite get it right, did they?
Well, as I say, I really like the commitment that they made. What was really amazing is that 4 out of the 5 leaders completely messed up on the question about their personal commitment to dealing with climate change. So for me, the thing everyone should be thinking about doing, as we mentioned earlier, is switching to renewable energy, reducing your turning the heating down if you can. Think about reducing your flights in particular. Take less flights. If possible, think about getting an electric car. So of the 5, only one of the politicians was anywhere near to this. And so realistically, what you can do here, you can maybe reduce your CO2 emissions by 15-20%, right? But what about the rest? What about that 80-85%? And that's where the planting trees comes in, and not one of them mentioned this. So basically think about removing your CO2 emissions, plant some trees, and particularly if you're making a journey, if you're going by air a long way, then think about planting trees to offset your carbon emissions.
Very good.
Very good. So if you had the magic wand, you could wave it and have a couple of wishes, what would they be when it comes down to sustainability or the mindset of people out there? What would you make everyone a veggie?
No, because
what would you do?
I'm not vegetarian myself, and I don't actually agree with a lot of people that we should all go on a plant-based diet, because like I said earlier, animals are really important for our soil, biodiversity, but obviously when they're looked after in the traditional sort of way. Sorry, what's the question again?
If you had the magic wand,
Oh yes.
what if you could do it, make anything happen?
Okay, if I could choose one thing.
You can choose 3. I'll let you.
Oh, 3. All right. If I could choose one thing, it would be to ask people to really consider when they're buying something really cheap. That I would, in the supermarkets they call them stocking fillers. I would just call it tat. Because really most of these cheap things, people just look at it and go, oh, that's really nice, and then it goes in a cupboard somewhere. So really think about your single use, like we talked about earlier. Secondly, just try, if you're like Gary and you love your meat, and I know a lot of you do, and I do, I've just done no meat November, so I'm not going to lie, I'm looking forward to Sunday. And just try one day a week to
Yeah.
just not have meat.
I agree.
And if you are having meat on a Sunday, maybe consider, if you're having a bird, to keep that lovely, you know.
You made me hungry just talking to you.
I know, that's why I started thinking about food.
Just think about
Keep
stock.
that lovely carcass and make some, you know, a lovely stock for another time. Or even if I don't have time to do it, that's an excuse a lot of people give. Freeze the bones themselves, and you can do it like that. And then use your chicken to make something else the day after that, like our grandparents did. So I've had 2. I've taken quite a long anyway. 3, yes, consider not getting in your car to go to the post office to post a letter, or to go locally to buy that loaf of bread. You don't need to make those journeys. I think something like, is it 60% of journeys are under 5 kilometres?
Yeah, it was statistics.
Yeah,
similar
something
to
like that in London. Talking about London. So there you go. That's me.
I love them. I love them
you.
all.
Thank you.
Definitely. So my 3 wish lists.
I've already nicked them now.
No. Well, do you know, there's lots of things we can do.
Yeah,
and certainly the ones
absolutely.
you mentioned, definitely. But I think mine would be, the moment you asked that question, Gary, actually something came to mind. I think it was last week or maybe the week before. Italy announced, or a region in Italy announced, that they are making it compulsory, and they're embedding within their national curriculum for children at school to learn about the climate emergency,
I love
to learn
that.
about
Yeah.
you know, climate change. And I think that education part is, I think that's a must. I think that children at school should learn, it should be compulsory for them to learn about the environment and the impacts that we have upon the planet.
I love that.
I think it's really crucial. So I think that's really important.
That's
That's
a
a
lovely
must.
wand.
That seems like a no-brainer to me. I don't see why that would be so difficult to implement. But of course, I'm not at the helms of these decision making. So that'd be
It's
one.
forward thinking. It's going to be standard.
Yeah.
Our children will say that their children, it's a standard core in the.
Yeah.
I think it's
Look.
crucial, definitely. Do I get one more?
Go for it. You can have 2 if you like.
I know 2. Okay. My second thing would be, you reminded me when you were talking about CSR. So back when I was in the corporate world, we had the option of donating to charity, and I think that some kind of green agenda should be compulsory for corporate companies, maybe over a certain level, to actually do some kind of carbon offsetting, or to you know, donate their funds to a certain kind of environmental related you know, causes, because we are in a climate emergency and things need to be done. And those in the corporate world, in the city, where, you know, lots of the money and lots of the decision making powers are, I think that they should and could be doing a lot more. Definitely, without a shadow of a doubt. And it's those small changes, if you can implement.
It's
within
going to
a
weigh on
culture,
our social conscience.
it
I
will
think it was a
change.
blind spot for very many people. They didn't even realise what was happening
Yeah.
there, and it weighs on my conscience. It really does. And the more I understand, the more guilty I feel, actually. And I don't want that to put you off, because really, if we're going to have a planet that's going to exist going forward, that it can only be positive.
Yeah.
Charles.
I want to pick up on what Stephanie was saying about the climate emergency. So it's a climate and environmental emergency, and it's really, really important. So the UK declared this emergency on the 1st of May. And as of yesterday, apparently there were 389 local authorities and towns and cities throughout the UK that have declared an emergency. That's amazing, because what that means, for every one of those, there will be a local group, at least one, which is trying to do something about climate change. So I belong to 2 of those. The area that I'm in, I belong to one at the local authority level and another one at the parish level, and the one at the parish level is working on switching electricity. So the news of yesterday is that the European Union, the European Parliament, has also declared a climate and environmental emergency. And this is massive, because the population of the EU is 500 million. It's 7 times bigger than the UK. So by the middle of next year, there could be 2,500 additional groups all working on climate change. So if you're out there, think about it. We talked about reducing your CO2 emissions. Remove the rest of your CO2 emissions. That's the 80% you can't reduce. Remove those by planting some trees, and then join one of these groups. Join a national group to do with the climate and environment. because they're doing some great work, and then join one of these local groups, these grassroots groups like the North London Sustainability Network.
Yes.
Join one of these groups where you can have a much bigger impact and make a difference. Because
Have you got a date for your next one?
No,
it'll
not
be
yet.
summer 2020, but we haven't got a specific
Charles and
date.
I will be there.
But yeah, summer
Yeah,
2020.
absolutely.
Great
We'll
to have
be
you
there.
both. Yeah.
We will
Yeah.
definitely be there.
And it will
Lovely
be our sixth
vegetarian
event.
vegan menu by yours truly.
Yeah.
For
Food,
me,
drink.
things are much more simple. If I walk the kids to school instead of driving, if I never buy a plastic bag again in my life, if I reduce my beef, buy some Christmas presents that are trees,
Or make
Novel.
some Christmas presents.
make some Christmas presents. I've got a problem with wrapping paper.
Yeah.
Because after all the
yeah.
kids have opened their presents, all that wrapping paper, it's
True.
taken some time to
Such a
make it.
shame.
And
It's-
cards as well.
Cards.
You know, with all that,
Yeah.
like,
And the big
shiny
shame
stuff.
with wrapping paper, most people won't really know, is that a lot of wrapping paper is not actually recyclable because it contains plastic.
No way.
So you put it in, you automatically just chuck it all in the
Right.
recycling bin because it's paper and you think you're doing good, but actually a lot of it can't be recycled because it has plastic.
So just
like a lot of things can.
Yeah, so just an idea, dear guys, get one of those boxes that stuff comes in, and ideally get a box as big as possible, and if you've got a really small gift, then you can hide it in the middle of this huge big box instead. Okay? I've done it before, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
No, brilliant. I must admit I'm a bit boring. I don't even for like young children. I don't I don't wrap anything anymore. I just have a bag and just give it out.
That's a lot easier. Charles, before we wrap up, do you mind reminding everybody? Wrap
boom.
up. Do you mind reminding everybody if they want to make a donation this Christmas, or they'd like to buy somebody some trees?
Yeah.
How do they go about doing that?
It's very simple. You go online, the website, it's on the screen. It's www.n0, that's the number 0co2.org, and you go to the donate page and you choose how many trees you want to plant. So basically, to remove all 7 tons of, which is the UK average, you need to plant 1,750 trees, which is £187. That's £187, one-time payment, or £5 a month for 3 years. So please take a look, see what you can do. There's a lot of people out there who like this as a gift, and as I say, every 100 trees, basically you're creating a day's work for a family who were in extreme poverty. So thanks so much. Thank you.
Yeah,
Well, we're not going to wrap
fantastic.
up just yet because no one really knows what I'm going to do here. What I'm going to ask for is a New Year's resolution.
Okay.
An environmentally friendly one. So for me, I'm gonna make sure that I've got at least a day that I'm a vegetarian, and I'm gonna reduce the amount I eat beef probably by half. So
Fantastic.
there we go.
That's amazing. Good for
Definitely. Yourself, you've got a New Year's resolution, an eco one.
you.
You already do it, but
I
let's see.
think I'm going to not get in the car as much. I don't get in the car that much anyway because I use my van, to be fair. Can you come back to me? I'm trying to think of something proper.
She already does.
Rather than just
she
making
already-
it up.
Yeah, but there we go. That's something.
No, but there must be things I can
Do
do.
you cycle?
No, I walk.
Oh, you've got a cycle.
Yeah.
That's great.
I think for me, I mean, this is something personally that I've actually, been doing and trying to do, but reduced my own use of plastics. And I'm not sure what kind of specific New Year's resolution that is because I don't know what that kind of metric looks like, but certainly my own use of plastics. I'm not saying I'm going to go and turn into a plastic-free household because that's a huge thing to do, but you never know. Maybe I'll get there one day, but certainly plastics for me is a massive thing.
Because all we're doing is we're putting out a possibility. Have a small.
Yeah.
That if everyone does something small. Charles, have you got a news resolution?
Yeah, I've got a big one. So this week we launched the new campaign. So this is in addition to the trees, and the idea is to reach out to a much wider group of people who are beyond those who want to plant trees. And this is Choose. The campaign is Choose. The website should be live during next week.
Great.
So the website is www.stopglobalwarming.today. So it's very simple. It's about choosing. So you choose to stop global warming, sign up, share about and inspire other people about it, and then take action. So it's choose, and the website is www.stopglobalwarming.today. Please take a look next week. It's amazing. So many people are really interested in this. It's got the potential to be really big. So take a look next week. Thanks, everybody.
I want to recognise you before we wrap this up. Recognise you both for the great work that you do in sustainability.
Very kind.
No,
Thank
but
you.
I mean it.
And
We
you,
will
you're
definitely,
cycling.
be
And
there
Charles,
to
obviously.
try holding us back. So
Aw.
thank you very much for coming on the
Thank
show.
you.
If you've enjoyed this, there's no charge. Just share it. Tell somebody else. Tell somebody else about sustainability, because it starts with a conversation. Charles,
It does.
do you want to say the last word for this year?
Reduce, remove, join an organisation, get involved in the climate emergency. That's all you have to do. It's very easy.
Join us at the North London Sustainability Network community.
Yay!